Let me start by wishing our Muslim brothers and sisters a blessed Ramadan. May Allah give you strength and grant your wishes. Ramadan Kareem. Fellow Malawians, a few weeks ago, I spoke to you about what is needed to be done by government to effectively respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. Unfortunately, my sincere words of advice and caution were treated with contempt and dismissed by those who have been charged with leading our nation's management of public health emergency without any due regard to the merits of my advice. My suggestions and recommendations were meant to help those in charge to better understand and manage this emergency before us. Given these circumstances, one would be tempted to back off, give up, or fold one's arms and choose to watch from the sidelines as this crisis engulfs our nation. But that is not an option that any serious leader or patriot would exercise. And so, it is not something I will do. I will not stay silent. I will not sit down and watch. I will not stop engaging and speaking to the leadership. I will continue to engage and speak with you, my fellow Malawians, so that we better understand and exercise our individual collective responsibility in dealing with this pandemic. Fellow countrymen, coronavirus is here in our country. Yes, COVID-19 has arrived in Malawi. It is no longer a rumor or news from afar. This virus is amongst us in our communities. Since the first 3 cases were confirmed on April the 2nd, the number of new cases has steadily been on the rise. In just over 3 weeks, we now have 33, as a matter of fact, 34 confirmed cases, and we have already lost 3 people to this marauding virus. I offer my heartfelt condolences to those who have lost their loved ones, and I pray that their souls will rest in peace. To those that have been diagnosed with the virus, I send you my message of goodwill and encouragement. Stay strong and hopeful. The whole nation is with you. We wish you a quick recovery and safe return to your normal family and social life. Fellow Malawians, the rapid increase in COVID-19 cases is evidence that with the virus we have no time to lose but put our acts together. As we dilly-dally to do what needs to be done, and as we stumble along, we should not kid ourselves that the virus is going to wait on us. Yes, we have a national response plan and so many other sectoral strategies and measures drawn up. But without vigorous and strategic leadership, all these plans and strategies are nothing but pieces of words on a paper. At this hour, Malawi needs a unifying leadership that is not absent, that does not hesitate or shy away from taking responsibility and motivating vigilance and action from duty bearers and every other citizen. This is war. Our country is at war against COVID-19. COVID-19 will not leave just by giving it silent treatment. Silence or political talk is not a strategy for this kind of serious crisis. In Chichewa, movie Oyanganira, Umaloa Maso. Fellow Malawians, we have seen and heard reports of how COVID-19 has devastated countries around the globe. The so-called developed and rich countries are on their knees despite their advanced and strong health systems. Economies are crumbling, and as they say, ngati mtengo wa uwisi ukupsa chotere uli bwanji owuma, Luka 23:31. We can't risk overwhelming our already weak health system We can't risk overwhelming our inadequate and poorly equipped health workers already overburdened with other diseases amongst us. Even before this disease, our country was already overburdened with high unemployment rates, biting poverty, malnutrition, and many other societal challenges. Fellow Malawians, it is in recognition of the fierce urgency of the present situation that I would like to speak with you on some very specific observations about where we are right now and where we need to go. In doing this, I am building on the suggestions that I offered when I last addressed you. I still stand by those suggestions and believe that if embraced in good faith, as they should have been, they can actually go a long way in helping us all better manage the crisis we now face. So first, I'll address the issue of loss of trust. Fellow Malawians, it is very clear to everyone that government faces a serious deficit of public trust. The public reaction to information from the government on COVID-19 proves one key thing. The public does not recognize the current leadership as a credible source of information. Every announcement and statement from the leadership is met with doubt and suspicion. This is sad and regrettable at so many levels. Firstly, it hampers the government's efforts in effectively managing the crisis. Any credible public health response requires buy-in from the very people that it is meant to save. If those people have no trust in the government, they will not cooperate in the interventions that are meant to save their own lives. Secondly, lack of trust in the government messaging on the spread of the virus will lead people to lower their guard and ignore basic instructions for preventing the contraction of the virus. They will ignore instructions of health personnel on hygiene and social distancing. The result will be that they will put themselves, their loved ones, as well as their communities in grave danger. Put simply, loss of public trust in their government in a time of crisis can only lead to a disaster of epic proportions. This is why it is important, therefore, the response to the pandemic must be owned by the nation. It must be all-embracing and must be inclusive. President Professor Kapitan Tarika should for once demonstrate leadership by inviting opposition party leaders, civil society organizations, religious organizations, captains of industry, and even celebrities to be part of the national response. In that way, a clear message will be sent to every Malawian out there that we are in this together and that whatever steps and measures will be taken will be driven for the common good. This is not time for using the pulpits of government to gain political mileage. Bana, Bamadenda. The stakes are way too high for us to be grandstanding and seeking to gain political advantage out of this. Let us so together own the solutions to this crisis in the spirit of Umuntu. Unfortunately, instead of building public trust, some senior cabinet ministers seem hell-bent to lose whatever trust was remaining in the government. Indeed, while others are fighting hard to stop the spread of the virus, some cabinet ministers are holding campaign rallies with hundreds of people where no social distancing is being observed, going against the very recommendations of the Minister of Health. While people are being chased out of their churches and mosques, the same people are being asked to attend campaign rallies addressed by cabinet ministers. How can people trust such a government? Fellow Malawians, there is no denying that this crisis has exposed the shameful condition in which our healthcare infrastructure is in. The coronavirus finds our hospitals dilapidated and wanting in essential life-saving equipment and supplies, and ridiculously understaffed, even as qualified personnel that we have trained at a great cost to ourselves have languished at home actually jobless. It has found our health system utterly exposed and unprepared for the task at hand. So let us be clear about this. What we are seeing now has been many years in the making, and one hopes that this crisis will offer us an opportunity to radically alter the course. First, to invest in our healthcare system so that it is better prepared to handle crises of this nature today and in the future. Politicians must now know that there will be times when treatment in foreign hospitals will not be a viable option. Well, this is such a time. We owe it to ourselves and to our compatriots, therefore, that our hospitals must always be well supported so that they are able to meet whatever challenges are thrown at them. Fellow Malawians, in responding to the demands that our healthcare workers had made for revision of their risk allowances, I am glad that these have been revised and revised upwards. But there doesn't appear to be any justification why the risk allowances should be limited to the period when they are dealing with the COVID-19. The risks that health workers face are real, and they are faced on a daily basis. These risks have been around even before COVID-19, and they will remain there long after the virus has been contained. And while no amount of money can sufficiently compensate these brave sons and daughters of this country for their patriotic sacrifice and service, the risk allowances that they get must be meaningful. It is therefore my recommendation that the upward revision of the allowances must be made both permanent and inflation responsive. Besides COVID-19, which is a new disease, our health workers are dealing with even more difficult and high-risk diseases on a daily basis in settings with poor facilities and poor welfare. Besides COVID-19, we still have malaria, we still have maternal health challenges, HIV and AIDS, and cancer, among other diseases. In a way, I would say the public health system in Malawi is routinely in a state of disaster, and the COVID-19 situation has just revealed the gaps. Fellow Malawians, the healthcare workers should also be equipped with personal protective equipment so that they are protected in order to protect others. I note that some of this equipment has been made available to them, but procurement plans must be put in place so that these supplies do not run out. Actually run out in the midst of our response. Unfortunately, even in times of crisis like these, there are attempts to engage only politically connected middlemen to procure these items from abroad. One would have expected that government, through the central medical stores first, and using diplomatic channels, was going to procure items directly from abroad, unless of course some credible local supplier has them off the shelf, in order to save both time and scarce resources. But no, they still think in these times of sorrow, there are also times for profiteering. Some ministers are actually directly involved in sourcing quotations. We are aware. Fellow Malawians, I have also observed that our system of requiring COVID-19 infected persons or those who might have been exposed to the virus to self-isolate or self-quarantine is not working well. Key challenges being, number one, lack of follow-up and reinforcement, and secondly, being impractical for most poor people because they live in already crowded homes. We urgently need to either abandon or revise our home isolation protocols and to include active reinforcement and follow-up, and to create an institutional option for those who have no spare room in their households. Institutional isolation centers need to be fit for purpose and human occupation. It is pointless to put people in these centers or facilities if there is no guarantee of scrupulous hygiene, quality medical care, personal security, and food. Suggestions to use state facilities as temporary solutions are met with mockery. Malawi can actually be a model. We were not born to copy what others have done. We have our own brains and we can think for ourselves, actually. Fellow Malawians, the nation and the government should also realize that for an illness with very limited treatment options like this one, people who are putting themselves in self-isolation are heroes and ought to be treated with dignity. They ground their entire life for the safety of their families, their communities, and their nation. These people deserve praise, love, and support from their communities and the government. We must avoid stigmatization of our brothers and sisters. Anyone can be infected by this virus. It does not choose. Be it Prince Charles in the UK, the British Prime Minister was actually in the intensive care unit because of the same virus. There is absolutely no room for stigmatization of people afflicted of this disease. In actual fact, such people should give testimonial evidence of their experience, and the trust and believability levels will sure improve. These are the best advocates. We must actually use them. Fellow Malawians, we also need to urgently and radically scale up our testing capacity so that it can support wider surveillance of the disease. It is disheartening that to date we have tested less than 1,000 people, and that we still have no testing capabilities in many parts of the country. This is a disaster waiting to explode. Lack of testing means that there could be many people who are carrying the virus and infecting others without even knowing about it. This may result in an unchecked spread of the virus among our population. While we are very grateful for donors such as Jack Ma, founder of Alibaba, for donating medical supplies to Malawi, our response to this crisis cannot entirely depend on charity. We must be able to mobilize resources and procure testing kits so that they are made available to our healthcare workers. They claim that 20,000 kits are enough for 18 million people. Simply does not make any sense. It is actually nonsensical. Now I'll talk about the lockdown. Fellow Malawians, I'm aware that there was an attempt by government to impose a lockdown for a period of 21 days from 18th of April 2020. This was temporarily stopped by the High Court, and the final determination on this matter will be made on Wednesday the 29th. As we have learned from countries where they have been imposed, well organized and adhere to lockdowns, may be an effective tool for slowing down the spread of the virus. But public health experts tell us that in themselves, without more, they may not do much to help societies contain this virus. The questions that we need to ask, therefore, are some of the following. A, what is the scientific goal and trigger for the lockdown? B, what scientific parameters will government be monitoring during the lockdown to tell that all is either on track or off track, and when it will actually be stopped? C, with the current poor testing capacity, what exactly will the government be doing during the lockdown? D, shouldn't we put our house in order and know the full extent of the epidemic before we actually lock down? E, does the population have what they need to fully comply with the restrictions while maintaining good health? F, how does the public health benefit of the lockdown compare with its potential harms? And G, have we bothered to follow the law when coming up with a lockdown? Fellow Malawians, locking people away in their homes without clear and deliberate public health strategy for steering the lockdown will not do much to help our situation. Further, thought must be also given to our unique circumstances as a country. The majority of our people do not live in luxurious compounds in the suburbs of our cities. For the urban, the majority live in modest housing, some of them in shacks, in medium to highly populated areas known as ghettos. Most of these people do not even have access to running water in their homes and must access their water either at kiosks or boreholes, which may be some distance from their homes. Most of them do not have access to electricity and so cannot stock up food in refrigerators like the political elites and thieves. That is why they have to go to the market on almost a daily basis to get their food. In fact, they go out every day to earn only enough to buy food for that particular day. They live hand to mouth. Shameful levels of poverty mean that most of these people do not have any savings at all. Restricting them to their homes for 3 weeks without guaranteeing them food rations is almost certainly condemning them to death by hunger. These are conditions which mostly replicate themselves in the villages. It was quite clear, therefore, that the lockdown that was announced by government had not been well thought through and had clearly been rushed. We cannot avert thousands of deaths due to coronavirus and yet cause millions of deaths due to hunger, malnutrition, and depression. My view, therefore, is that a need for a lockdown should firstly be based on public health imperatives and nothing else, certainly not for political reasons. It should also be supported by credible interventions such as testing on a large scale, as well as contact tracing. People should also be cushioned from the economic effects of being prevented from earning their daily wages. The restrictions on movement of people should also recognize our unique situation, that for the majority of our people, they must leave their homes to go and draw water, for instance. We can rush to mobilize the military and the police service to enforce the lockdown. But if we have not adequately addressed these concerns, we will simply be pitting our servicemen against the very same people they have sworn to defend. We will further be creating room for social unrest and the possible grave violations of human rights. This is a path best avoided. A lockdown can only be effective if people have capacity to comply. In our unique situation, the population needs government to support before they can afford the level of compliance that is needed. Only when these are guaranteed and can be scaled up from advice from health experts will a lockdown make sense. The respect for rule of law. Fellow Malawians, there does appear to be suggestions from some that in responding to this emergency, we need not pay attention to what the Constitution as well as our laws say on dealing with emergencies. This is dangerous and deceitful suggestion that ought to be firmly rejected. The Constitution is not only our guiding light, but it also protects us all from the worst impulses of those who exercise power. There is no greater need to guard against abuse of power than in times of emergencies, primarily because autocrats usually will use such emergencies to allocate to themselves power that they do not possess nor respect the rule of law, or indeed settle political scores. We should all be on guard so as not to allow COVID-19 pandemic to be used as an excuse to violate the Constitution and the human rights in this country. To this end, let me also categorically reject the shameful position taken by government in making gratuitous attacks on our judges for merely doing what the Constitution and their oath of office require them to do. That is, interpret the law of the land. If the judges say this or that decision or regulation, important as it may be in reducing the spread of the virus, has not been done according to what the Constitution or the Public Health Act or indeed the Public Finance Management Act says, the executive cannot start calling the judges names or indeed make childish statements that they shall leave the management of the crisis to the judiciary. Other countries have come up with regulations too, but they made sure that they followed the law in doing so. If you think you are unable to follow our Constitution and all our laws in dealing with this crisis, simply resign and go home. Others shall take over and get this job done. Nobody pays you to be sulking, and we shall not join the sulk challenge regardless which office makes such a shameless suggestion, directly or otherwise. In this regard, let me state that I have seen the guidance that the Malawian society has given on how this crisis can be managed in accordance with the law. It is quite clear that this far in managing COVID-19, the response, we have proceeded on a path of illegality, which will, down the line, only expose the government to expensive court claims and some public officers to criminal prosecution in their personal capacity. This is something that ought to be remedied as a matter of urgency. Should need be, the Speaker of the National Assembly, in consultation with the President, should consider calling a meeting of the National Assembly so that it actually deliberates on legislation for dealing with the crisis in a manner that is constitutionally compliant. I'm aware that such a meeting would also raise its own public health concerns, but this is something that the leadership of the House can work to mitigate on, so that in transacting its business, the health of the legislators is not put in peril. We can learn from others or devise our own means to engage lawmakers using technology, just as an example. Let me also talk on the issue of the upcoming elections. Fellow Malawians, allow me to address the proverbial elephant in the room. As you know, the Constitutional Code decided that the fresh presidential elections must proceed. So we are having fresh elections soon. The registration process is continuing as we speak. There are attempts by others to mislead people that there won't be elections. That is obviously not true at this stage, unless otherwise guided. Others went to the extent of openly sending thugs to destroy the Electoral Commission's equipment in Blantyre. They were apprehended by ordinary citizens who are tired of the thuggery and having their future stolen by criminals. Others indeed are using the coronavirus pandemic to scare people, particularly in areas they have zero support, so that people do not go and register. I say again, this must and shall fail. In short, let us go and register so that we vote. Choosing leaders is our God-given right. Choosing right leaders shall stop the needless deaths of our women who suffer when giving birth. Choosing the right leaders shall reduce the countless deaths due to curable diseases afflicting our communities. Choosing the right leaders means better equipping our hospitals and our hospital personnel to best deal with this pandemic and other diseases. Choosing the right leaders means using our security forces to bring peace and harmony in our communities and not to save one person and his small group of friends and tribesmen. In short, choosing the right leaders means marshalling all this nation's wealth and resources for the common good. Malawi shall be a happy nation. We must therefore go and register while ensuring that we follow the recommendations on hygiene and social distancing to ensure that we do not spread the virus. This is possible. It has been done elsewhere. It can be done in Malawi. As it happens, there are credible stories of registration of underage children and the buying of voter registration cards by certain people. We shall withhold their names for now. I would like to remind these criminals that Malawians have had enough of your shenanigans. Do not test their patience. They are watching you. As a matter of fact, we are watching you. We shall ensure that no one, and I repeat, absolutely no one, steals this election. The country needs to move on. Malawians do not want to be voting every year. They want their lives to return to normalcy. The point is, whether underage registration or buying of votes, let me assure you, you are not going to steal a single vote. Let me also briefly mention that in a normal society, two security institutions should not go to war with each other. There was an unfortunate incident a few days ago where the police and the prison services actually engaged in an exchange. You can call it friendly exchange. but there was use of live bullets or live ammunition. I would like to call upon the authorities to do a thorough investigation and bring to book he who gave the order that the police must actually visit the prison premises. If usage of live ammunition or unauthorized usage of live ammunition is something that we're going to let go on, people in this country are going to die. Let me conclude as follows. I want to urge all of you, my fellow Malawians, not to be deceived. COVID-19 is real and it is here. It is a dangerous disease which in actual fact has no cure. We owe it to ourselves to follow basic instructions so that we keep ourselves, our loved ones, our communities safe. Let us keep washing our hands with soap regularly for a period of no less than 20 seconds and or to use alcohol-based hand sanitizers. I do know that at the moment the coverage has been to the extent that people are infected and people die. But to give you a sense and a feeling of hope, 80% of that contacted the disease actually get cured. Let us maintain social distance of not less than 1 meter from the next person, as you can see. For those of us who can stay home and work from there, please do so. If we are coughing and sneezing, let us do so into the inside of our elbows and not into our hands. We can also cover our mouth and nose with a clean tissue or paper towel, which we should immediately and safely dispose of. And when we develop flu-like symptoms, let us stay at home and self-isolate. If we get symptoms like a cough, sore throat, fever, and difficulties in breathing, stay home along with your entire household. If your symptoms worsen, such as getting very breathless or severe chest pain, please call the Ministry of Health reaction teams on the numbers that have been provided so that we can be assisted within our homes. If you are aged over 55, have heart disease, high blood pressure, chronic lung diseases, your risk of getting severe illnesses or not making it is higher than the rest of the population. So please stay home for the duration of the disease spread. Young people, time has come for you to look after your parents and grandparents wherever they are. Stock them up with basic needs so that they do not have to move around for food and soap. Fellow Malawians, let us all do our bit and be responsible during this time. We should avoid spreading fake news, which just serves to cause unnecessary alarm and panic within the members of the general public. Get your information on the pandemic from reliable sources only. Avoid trying remedies and medicines that have not been recommended by the health experts. You will just end up harming yourself and leave your loved ones longing for you. Finally, I want to continue paying tribute to our health workers, the good men and women who are following up on the COVID-19 and conducting contact tracing, the workers who are collecting samples and testing them, the doctors and the nurses who are caring for the sick. You are this nation's finest, the brave of the bravest. We salute you and your immeasurable sacrifice and promise to stand with you during this hour of danger and uncertainty. You are inspiring all of us through the power of your example. I would like to thank you for your attention. May the good Lord bless and heal our nation. Mwachidule, pang'ono, mchichewa, oyamba, mundilole kuti ndipereke mafuno abwino kwa abale athu amene pa mwezi uno wa Ramadan akupanga mapemphero apaderadera. Kwa inu nonse, mapemphero abwino komanso Allah akudalitseni. Tikufunirani mafuno abwino a mwezi umenewu wa Ramadan, tikuti Ramadan Karim. Amalawi anzanga, sabata zingapo zapitazo ndinalankhulapo zofunika kuchita kuonjezera pamwe zikuchitika kale kuti dziko lino likhale lokonzeka pomwe tikulimbana ndi matenda a COVID-19. Mawu kapena malangizo onse palibe adagwiritsa ntchito pa zifukwa zomwe kwambiri zili zandale. Komatu zomwe ndidanena ndifotokoza ndi cholinga choti tithandize Amalawi omwe tikuwatumikira. Ndipo kamba ka izi wina atingonyanyala nkusiya osamalankhulazo. Koma ine sinditero iyayi. Sindiyang'ana kumbali nkumaonerera zinthu zikuchitika mwachisawawa. Ndipitiriza kulankhula ku mtundu wa Malawi komanso ku atsogoleri makamaka mtsogoleri wa dziko lino. Matendawa agwera tonse ndipo aliyense ayenera kutengapo gawo osatengera ndale kapena chigawo chimene tikuchokera. Matendawa Malawi muno alipo, si manong'onong'o, si mphekesera, si nkhani za mabodza. Alipo ndithu kuchokera pa 2 April pamene tinamva kuti anthu atatu amene amadwala, lero chiwerengero chafika pano 34. Izi zikutanthauza kuti matendawa akunkana afalikira. Ngakhale zili choncho, uthenga umene tikupereka pano sutenga ocheka nkhawa kumtundu wa Malawi. Uthenga okhuzana ndi matenda a kwenikweni uli m'magawo awiri. Poyamba kutsimikiza kuti ngakhale kuti ena akumapezeka kuti akudwala matenda amenewa ndipo matendawa alibe mafala odziwika kwenikweni, koma tikatsata mfundo zabwino zimene akadaulo akatswiri za malamulo akutiuza, tikhoza kuchira potsata njira zopewera matenda amenewa. Pamene matendawa ali kuno kwathu ku Malawi, tisimikizani kuti matendawa mungatanenapo ine tamvera kuti sali ku Malawi kokha kuno, alipo pa dziko lonse lapansi pano. Sakusankha mtundu, sakusankha maonekedwe a anthu, koma alipo ndithu. Ndipo mayika mwa zathumu anthu ambiri ochuluka zikwi afa chifukwa cha matenda amenewa. Koma kuno ku Malawi tigwirizane kuti mfundo zimene akutifotokozera anzathu azaumoyo tizitsate, tizigwiritse bwino kuti titeteze poyamba miyoyo yathu, ya mabanja athu, komanso ya anzathu amene tikukhala nawo m'madera amodzi kandi mtawuni muno, ngakhalenso kumidzi kwathu kumene tonsefe tidachokera. Pali mavuto angapo ofuna kuwunikirapo. Vuto loyamba ndilonena kuti mtundu wa Malawi wataya chikhulupiriro ndi atsogoleri. Nzosabisika pano kuti nkhani kapena mauthenga ambiri akabwera kuchokera kwa iwo amene anapatsidwa udindo oti ayendetse ndondomeko zothandiza poyamba kufalitsa uthenga komanso kutiwunikira kuti zikuyenda bwanji, ambiri sakuwakhulupirira. Ngati anthu sakukhulupirira atsogoleri, vuto loyamba ndilokuti zimene akuwuzidwazo ngakhale zitakhala kuti nzaphindu sazigwiritsa ntchito. Pa chifukwa ichi mtundu wa Malawi ukhala pa chiopsezo. Tiyapemphe mobwereza President a dziko lino Profesa Arthur Mutharika kuti akwana nthawi tsopano tisiye ndale pambali, tisiye zigawo pambali, tisiye mtundu pambali. Itanani atsogoleri onse andale, amabungwe omwe si aboma, atsogoleri a mipingo, kandi akuluakulu amakadaulo amabizinesi, komanso iwo ena amene ali ndi maluso osiyanasiyana, tikhala pamodzi kuti ndondomeko iyi ikhale kuti eni wake ndi mtundu wa Malawi. Si ndondomeko ya munthu mmodzi, si ndondomeko ya chigawo chimodzi, si ndondomeko ya boma limodzi. Tiyeni tisiye zimenezo kumbuyo uku, kuchokera pansi pa mtima kuti dziko lino lipewe muliri umene uli panowu, chifukwa ngati tidachitepo chibwana anthu akhoza kutayapo miyoyo yawo. Sizobisa kuti COVID-19 ikutionetseratu poyera kuti mwina ntchito zathu za umoyo, zipangizo mzipatala sizokwanira. Tipemphe kuti poyambirira tikamakamba za chipatala, ndi chipatala chomwecho chikhale chabwino, zipangizo zikhale zoyenerera, komanso anthu ogwira ntchito za umoyo kumeneko akhale poyamba ophunzira bwino, kachiwiri namalipidwa bwino kuti akhalenso ndipo okhala pabwino. Malawians anzathu abale athu amene akutiyang'anira amene amayang'anira matenda muzipatala anakwezedwa, koma sizokwanira kunena kuti tango akweza pa nthawi ino pamene kuli muliri. Ine ndikunena kuti Malawians amene akwezedwawo akwezedwe mpaka na kalekale, ndipo azikwezedwa potengera mmene zinthu kapena chuma cha dziko lino chikuyendera. Zisakhale zongopakana mafuta m'milomo koma nyama atadya ndi anthu ena. Tipitirire kunenapo nkhani pang'ono mwachidule zokhudzana ndi kutseka kapena kuletsa anthu kumatuluka m'manyumba zawo kapena m'midzi imene pa Chingerezi akunena kuti lockdown. Poyambirira tinene choncho kuti popereka mfundo kapena ndondomeko yonena kuti mufuna kutseka dera lina chifukwa chotupa kwa matenda, pamafunika kuwunikirapo zinthu zingapo zofunikira. Poyamba kufotokozera nzika za mdziko kuti tikati lockdown ikutanthauza kuti chani, ndipo lockdown m'malamulo a dziko lino ilipo, ndipo ngati tikutseka dera zipangizo zimene amazifuna anthu zimasoweka pa moyo wa munthu, kaya ndi masukulu, kaya ndi chakudya, kaya ndi sopo, kaya ndi madzi akumwa. Zimenezo anthu amene amadalira kukatunga madzi, kaya ndi pampope, kaya ndi pachitsime, kaya ndi paboho, madzi amenewo anthu aziyapeza. Kodi anthu amene amapanga mabizinesi ang'onoang'ono amene amadalira kuti anthu akapita ku ntchito nakagwira ntchito mama kuti pobwera kumeneko akapeza ka walkman, anthu amenewo mabizinesi awo akalowa pansi mdera limene tatsikalo tiyateteza bwanji? Pokhapo pamene tawunikira komanso motsogozedwa ndi akatswiri azaumoyo, pamenepo ndi pamene tikhoza kunena kuti dera ili tikufuna kutseka. Komanso mongopita patsogolo pang'ono, ngati matenda apezeka kuno ku Lilongwe ndipo palibe umboni onena kuti kuchitipa kaya ndi kunsanje kaya ndi kumulanji matenda amenewo palibe chifukwa chokatseka kumulanji. Tiye tiyang'ane kuti kuti anthu asalowe ndi kutuluka mulungu mpaka na matenda amenewo titaona kuti tatsana nawo. Tisalange anthu ena oti sanalakwe chifukwa cha umbuli wa anthu amene akutsogolera ntchito imene yofunikira kwambiri, komanso chifukwa cha chibwana chawo. Pamene tikukamba nkhani yomwe ya lockdown, ndinenepo pano kuti ngakhale pamene inalengezedwa inde kubwalo anayamba ayimitsa kuti amvetse bwino, awunikiridwe bwino kuti kutseka kumene kufuna kuchitika kuno kukotsata malamulo ndipo zikomera anthu, ndipo tikuyembekeza kuti sabata imene yayambika leroyi pachitatu pa 29 chigamulocho akhoti atiwuza kuti tilowe nayo kuti nkhani. Koma zomvetsa chisoni ndizonena kuti pamene abwalo akugwira ntchito yawo imene malamulo a dziko lino imapatsa, komanso malumbiro awo amanena, anthu ena akuluakulu achipani cholamula amene ali mboma akhalanso ali patsogolo kwa anyogodola akuluakulu ogwira ntchito za malamulo amenewa. Timati tipemphe kuti malamulo amayenera kuti azikomera mtundu, osati munthu akupatseni chigamulo lero ndiye muone ngati chakukomerani koma wapereka chigamulo chotsata malamulo. Mawa akabweranso kuti chigamulo chotsata malamulo omwewo koma sichinaukomere, munthu ameneyo asasanduke galu. Anthufe tizikhala ndi umunthu. Chibwana chomanena kuti iyi nkhani tikusira akhoti, tikusira abwalo la milandu, ndi chibwana chimene pano ndimafuna ndikuwuzeni kuti ngati ntchito yotsata malamulo dziko muno simungakwanitse, siyani tipeze ena oti azigwira ntchito. Alipo anthu ambiri amene akhoza kuyigwira ntchito bwino iyi ya COVID-19 kuti apulumutse miyoyo ya anthu. Inu achibwananu siyani ntchito kuzipita makwana, tipeze Malawi kuti ali serious ndi kugwira ntchito yopulumutsa miyoyo ya anzawo. Mongopitirira pang'ono mwachidule tikambepo nkhani ziwiri. Poyambirira nkhani ya zisankho. Ndizoona kuti bwalo lidalamula pa 3 February paja kuti zisankho kumalawi kuno za president zichitikenso, ndipo tikuona kuti ndondomeko zayambika. Ngakhale pali mavuto ambiri pa ndondomeko zimenezo, palibe akutsutsa kuti padakali pano chisankho malawi chichitikanso. Pokhapokhapo titsogoze pabwere chitsogozo cha mtundu wina. Pamene tikukonzekera choncho pali zoputa. Poyambirira kuti anthu ena akugula ma national ID cards a Malawians awo powanamiza kuti afuna wapatse ngongole. Popereka ngongole ya Malawians anga sipachita kufunika kutenga ID yanu ndikupereka kapena kugulitsa. Ayi, ndi umboni chabe onena kuti ndinu nzika, musapereke ma national ID sanakwanire zaka zoyenera kukavota zaka 18, ana ang'onoang'ono a zaka 10, 12, 14, 16 amene akumauzidwa ndi mbava kuti mupite kumeneko kolembetsa ndipo mukanene kuti muli ndi zaka zokwanira 18. Timafuna titsimikizire mtundu wa Malawi komanso tikutsimikizeni ino amene mukupanga zimenezi ndi cholinga chonena kuti azimbwe anu akhale adakali mboma akupitiriza kumaba ndalama za mtundu wa Malawi kuti ulendo uno sizitheka. Tinjira tanu tonse timene mukupangazo padakali pano Amalawi akuona, ifenso tikuona. Ikakwana nthawi yake amanena pachichewa chotcha kwa kabwino pa nthawi munthawi yoyikika tizakambirana bwino kuonesani kuti izi mukupangazi mungotaya nthawi ndi ndalama poyamba zanu koma koposaposa ndalama za misonkho ya mtundu wa Malawi. Yapemphe Amalawi konse kumene muli pano akulemba m'madera mwina Lilongwe, Mulanje, Tcholo, Palombe ndi kwina Dowa, tiye tipite tikalembetse mwaunyinji kuti tidzasankhe atsogoleri amene ali ndi ubwino wa mtundu wa Malawi kuti dziko lino lipite patsogolo. Pamene tikutero, pamene tikupita makalembetsa kuyambira mawa lino, tikuonetsenso kuti tikutsata bwino ndondomeko zimene azaumoyo akhazikitsa kuti pamene tikutero tikufuna kukonza tsogolo lathu kuti tidzalione bwino tisayikenso miyoyo yathu pa chiopsezo. Potero pamene tikuvota tiye tikatsatire ndondomeko zimene azaumoyo komanso abungwe la zisankho azitiuza. Lero kuvota kupereka zachitetezo akuti sakupita malo molembetsa yapemphe ndi ntchito imene munalembetsa. Chonde tiyeni tikapereke chitetezo chokwanira kuti anthu ogwira ntchito zolembetsa alembetse mtundu wa Malawi, athandize Amalawi kulembetsa komanso iwo amene apita kukalembetsawo akalembetse popanda chiopsezo cha mtundu wina uliwonse. Ngakhalenso mapulogalamu amene akuchitika ku NRB tikulemberani kalata musadandaule, mchitidwe wochotsa ma registration kits m'maboma a Nkhatabe ndi zigawo zina ngati pa chigawo chino pakati kupititsa kumene mupititsapo. Zimenezo tazimva uthenga umene watifika, ndipo ngati ziza chinyengo zimene mufuna kupangazo tingokutsimikizirani kuti masiku akubwerawa tikuwululani zonse zimene mukuchita. Ndipo pomaliza penipeni tipitirize kunena kuti tiyeni tithandizane popitiriza kupewa matenda amenewa. Ngakhale tikunena kuti tithandizane ngati dziko, koma poyambirira aliyense aone umoyo wake. Tione umoyo wa pabanja pamene tikukhala, tione umoyo wa dera limene tili, ndipo tikatero tidzathandiza kupewa matenda amenewa kuti asakhale mabanja mwathu komanso mdziko mwathumo. Mokumbutsana kusamba m'manja ndi sopo pafupipafupi, komanso pamene tayima pamalo kuyima motalikirana ndithu monga amene tayimira pano ndi anzanga ali apawa kuti tisapatsirane matenda amene padakali pano alibe mankhwala komanso akhoza kuchotsa miyoyo yathu. Anthu amene ali achikulire ali ndi matenda ena monga othamanga magazi ndi zina, nawonso atha kukhala pa chiopsezo chachikulu ndi matenda amenewa. Tipemphe ana ang'onoang'ono achinyamata kuti afika nthawi tsopano kuti malo moti makolo athu azithamanga nafuna shuga ndi mchere sopo, ifeyo ndiye tipite tikapatsira zokwanira zotenga kani milungu iwiri kaya ndi mwezi umene kuti makolo athu ndi azikoko athu asakhale pa chiopsezo. Ife amene tikudwala zifuwa tiyeni titsatire ndondomeko zimene anzathu azaumoyo akutifotokozera. Tikatero tithandiza kuti muliro umenewu usawonongeretu dziko lino la Malawi. Pamene tikutero tifuneni mafuno abwino kuti Ambuye Mulungu atidalitse tonsefe mtundu wa Malawi komanso alichize dziko lathu lino